Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Samantha, also known as Purple Sewing Cloud. Today we're sewing joggers. It sounds like not a very interesting garment to sew, but for me, joggers are life. It's so important. As somebody with chronic health conditions and disabilities, having joggers and comfortable clothing is so important. I mean, today I'm wearing proper clothes, as I call them, but to be able to get out of my pajamas on a morning and put on something really comfortable is so important for me. And I'm sure it's important for a lot of people. Anyway, back to the actual garment. So this is the Plateau Joggers by Closet Core Patterns. I am using a fleeced back sweatshirting. Now this sweatshirting was white, but I've had some experimenting with it and I've ice dyed it with all these pink tones. If you saw my last video, you will have seen this. It's got some yellow in it as well. Let me put that up there. I actually used a blue, but on the fabric it's come out yellow. I'm not sure what I did or what I did wrong, but we're going with it. It doesn't matter. I'm going to love them just as much. So first thing we need to do is set up our sewing machine. I am using a Bernina 480. This machine was provided to me by Bernina as part of their blogging team. I'm just using a normal foot on this, a normal open toe foot. But I have changed my needle. I'm using a sweatshirting needle in this, which is a size 90 because this is a bit of a thicker fabric. And I've also just threaded it with normal sew all thread. I'm just using a pink colour that matches some of the tones of pink in my fabric. I need to get my foot pedal. It always ends up like right at the back of my desk where my feet can't reach it. Anyway, I am using a zigzag stitch. Most machines have this stitch and it's the best stitch for sewing jerseys. What I always do is a test swatch, and this is just checking my stitches are the right width, tension, everything like that, and I'm not getting skip stitches from my needle. Okay, there's my stitches. Very beautiful. I'm really happy with them. The tension and everything is perfect on there. What I am going to do is actually reduce the width very slightly. I'm going to take that was set at a 3. I'm going to take it down to a 2. Let's try that now. Okay, that's a lot better. This is the second stitch I've done. I just prefer sewing my zigzags with a less wide stitch. I don't know what, a less width. I don't know what the word for that is at the moment, but yeah. What I am noticing though on those two little bits of stitching is the fabric is warping. I don't know if you can see that very much, but there's a slight wave in the jersey and I'm not stretching it or pulling it at all. So what I'm going to do to alleviate that is reduce the pressure on my foot, and it's a dial on the side of my machine. I know some machines don't have this, but if you do have it, it's an invaluable feature when you're sewing jersey and other fabrics. So I'm just reducing the pressure on there. I'm just reducing it so it's about a quarter of the way round. Let's try another little swatch. Okay, that's there, and as you can see now, there's no warping. My stitches are perfect width. And there's no tension issues there either. Beautiful, and I'm not getting any skip stitches or anything from my needle. So I do recommend you do this with every project you do as well, whether it's cottons, lawns, viscoses, anything. Just do a little test swatch before you start sewing. Make sure your needle's right, your tension's right, and your stitch length and everything is all set up how you want it to be. Okie doke. That's all done. Throw that out the way for now. And let's get started sewing our joggers. Okay, first thing, obviously, you cut them all out and transfer all your markings onto your pattern bits. I have already put all my notches in, and now I'm just drawing in some of the lines that are the pattern has you drawn. The first one is this here. And this is a line to match up your pockets. So once that's all on, as as you've seen on previous videos, I use Fix-On markers. This stitch line will be hidden, so it doesn't matter if it reappears, but be careful with these pens. They're not intended for fabric, and they can stain your fabric. They do disappear with heat, but occasionally if the fabric gets cold, these marks can reappear, so be very careful with them. Right, pop that in my little handy things there. I've dropped that on the floor, but never mind. The pocket for this has the inseam built into it, and that actually sits inside the pocket. It's a really beautiful little feature. Let's get our pins. I am using these pins. These are the pin pins, and these have a really great extra big head. And they're really great for sewing, for me, because I have issues with my fingers. So because these have that extra large head, you see that, it just gives me something bigger to grasp. So let's get this out, these pockets pinned up. So I read the instructions and then I take them apart and sew everything together in a way that suits my brain. So I'm doing both of the pockets at the same time, the front and the back. So first of all, what we want to do is get that pocket pinned up onto there, and then we're going to stitch that on, that bit there. Be very careful with this pattern, by the way. It is a 1 centimetre seam allowance. Very important to be remembering that when you're sewing this up. The other pocket piece I'm going to pin on now at the same time. This is the outside pocket piece. Goes on that side. And that's just going to be pinned onto that curve as well, matching our notches. And then we're going to sew down here and down across here. As I said, 1 centimetre seam allowance. I say that because it throws me, and I would automatically go and do a 5.8. And because of my memory issues with my disabilities, I would just completely forget that. So what I've done is popped a post-it on the front of my machine here that just says 1 centimetre, so I remember. The other thing you could do is use a seam gauge or just a little bit of washi tape just to remind yourself. So let's get these pockets sewn together. Okay, I'm gonna just finish these without you watching because it's a bit weird and it's a bit slow. Okay, my pockets are now all sewn on. So this is the inside of the pocket, and I've pressed the seam allowance towards the pocket piece. I have also overlocked that seam. If you want, you can just overlock this project or just sew it, because you are using a stretch jersey fabric. You don't need to finish your seams. I just like to do that. Yeah, anyway, so what we're going to do is stitch along here to attach that seam onto the pocket piece. So I'm just using a straight stitch for this, because that seam doesn't need to have any stretch on it, because you've already got that through the curve. A straight stitch is fine for that. And then what I'm going to do is top stitch this bit as well. So this is the front trouser and the pocket for that. I've stitched that on and then pressed it to this way, and I'm just going to do a stitch, top stitch that as well to keep that in place. La-di-da-da-da. Ah, voila. Let's do the other one. That's all top stitched on. Give that a little press and that'll be perfect. What I would say, doesn't matter if that's perfect. It's going to be inside your pocket. Nobody's going to see it, but you're just doing it to keep that seam in place underneath. This one, it is on the outside, so if you want to take a bit of extra time with that, you can do that. Okay, the next stage is getting our pockets sewn together. So what we're going to want to do is draw a line 1 centimetre from the edge down here, like so, and we're going to match that up with the line on the back of the trousers. The line, you want right sides together, like so, of your front and back trousers, and then match that line up and pin that into place. Okay, so this is how it should look once it's pinned together at the side here. You should have your back piece and your back pocket there, and then your front piece face right sides together with your back leg piece and your pocket pointing this way. And we're going to stitch down here along that line you've drawn to about 1 inch underneath where the pocket is. At the top of the side pocket opening, you're just going to want to do a couple of extra back stitches just to make that little bit extra secure. Once that little bit is sewn together, it'll look like this, and all we're going to do is flip that front pocket piece over and then pin all the way around and then down the inside leg and sew that up. Once you get to the side bit where your stitches are for the pocket, just pivot that, and that should be on, once you've pivoted, that should be on 1 centimetre. Once that side seam is sewn in, give that a press. You want to press it to the front, very important. And then we just have a couple of little jobs to do to finish the pocket. The first one is stitching across the top here, just to base that into place. And then just here at the very top of the of that pocket, we're going to pop in a little bar tack. If you don't want to do a bar tack and your machine won't do that, you can just do a few zigzags, go back and forth over it to make that little point nice and strong. Once you've got that basted and your bar tack in just at the side, you're going to want to sew the inside leg. After I've sewn the inside leg, this is where I change the instructions up a little bit as well. I'm going to sew the cuffs before I join the two legs together. Just gives me less fabric to maneuver and wrangle around as I'm sewing in the cuffs. If this is your first time using the pattern, do check the length before you're sewing the cuffs though. You can easily pop one leg on just to see where that length is sitting. A little note on the elastic I'm using throughout my project in the waist and in the leg cuffs. I'm using knit elastic. This is different to woven elastic. It's more supple when you're bending it that way, and you can also trim it lengthwise to have elastic that's the width of your choice. So I buy this in 2 inch wide, the 2 inch wide variety, and then I will trim it down if I want something smaller. So it's great for that. Also, what I find with this elastic is it's much more supple this way than a woven elastic, and that's really important for me when I'm wearing jogger bottoms, especially with my chronic tummy pain. I want something that's going to be really soft on my tummy, so I really recommend knitted elastic if you find that elastic digs into your tummy. Next thing we're going to do is the leg cuffs. The discernible over amongst you will notice I'm not doing this on my trouser leg. I filmed it and my camera deleted it, so I'm just doing it on a scrap of fabric to show you the technique. First thing you're going to want is some elastic. This elastic is 1 inch wide, and it is the length that you want. Ooh. The length that you want is depending on your size. Check the instructions for how much you're going to need, and then if you want, pop it around your ankle and just check it's not too tight and it feels comfortable. Then what I've done is I've sewn together the two edges of the elastic. I've just butted them together and done a zigzag over, so it's not very bulky. I've made quite a mess of that stitching though, but it'll do the job, and no one's going to see it because it's going to be inside the actual cuff. Pretend this is my leg cuff now. What we're going to do is turn that leg inside out, and you're going to want to put this elastic at the side seam or the inside leg where the join is and just pop a pin in. And that elastic should be on the wrong side of your fabric. And then pop that inside like so, and then stretch the elastic out, lining up the edges, but don't stretch out the fabric, and pop another pin in at the other side. Then do it again in the middle. So you're stretching out that elastic but not the fabric. So it's nice and even all the way around with the elastic. As I said, be very careful not to stretch out the fabric when you're doing this. Just pull the elastic so it's taut like so. Pinch it with 2 fingers, and that's where your pin's going to go in. Like so, until you've done all the way around, and then we're going to sew it together. We're going to sew along the very edge of the elastic with a zigzag here. So when you pull it out, that last elastic and the fabric should line up, and we're just going to do a zigzag right over that edge there. The best way I find to do this is to, if you've got a tray on the front of your machine, remove it and then pop this over the arm of the machine. Now, what we're doing is stretching this, as we're sewing this, we're stretching it out, but not stretching the fabric, just stretching the elastic so that there's no extra fabric gaping. Okay, and then we're going to zigzag right on the very edge of the fabric and the elastic. Pulling that taut at the front and back with both your hands. When you're doing this, you don't want to be pulling that through the feed dogs. Just let your feed dogs pull it through, but using 2 hands to keep it taut. That's how it's going to look once you've sewn all that elastic in. Now what we're going to do is flip it up. So just take your elastic and flip it up like so. So it looks something like that. And now what we're going to do is take it back to the machine and stitch along this edge again. Use the same technique as you did before. So pop it on to the arm of the machine like so, and then you're just stretching it out so the elastic is taut, but you're not stretching the fabric. And just zigzag across the same place as you did before. Okay, that's my leg cuff all done. As you can see, it's got a little bit of stretch, and on the inside you've got those zigzags running across that very edge. Because it is a sweatshirting, you don't need to overlock the edges. If you wanted to, after you've done the first row of stitching with the elastic, you could overlock it, or you can stitch it on with the overlocker and then flip it under and top stitch it down, or use a cover stitch machine. What I'm going to do now is sew the inseam and the crotch curve of my trousers, and I will come back to you once they're done. Doing now is pinning my waistband onto the garment. So I have sewn my waistband into a loop, and then pressed my seams, and then pressed the waistband into half. And now I'm just matching up all my notches and pinning it on. So I put my pins in this way, but at the back here you want to leave a space open. So what I've done to that to indicate to me where to stop and start is I've just put my pin in the other way around. So I'll start here, go all the way around, pulling my pins as I go, and then end here, and that just indicates to me to end there. Otherwise I will just continue if I don't have that indication to tell me to stop. Okay, that's my waistband all sewn on. I've left my little gap for my elastic. I've also overlocked it, not all the way around. I've left my little gap opening again. I just find it's easiest to overlock at this point before you thread your elastic in. My elastic's here, ready to go. I always cut my elastic a couple of inches longer, and that just means I can put this cut a little V into the top here, and it just threads through that channel much easier. And I'm just using a nappy safety pin to thread that through, just because the little head is bigger than a normal safety pin, so it's easier to grip and get through. The other good thing about nappy pins, nappy safety pins, is the little head locks, so when you're threading your elastic through, it doesn't accidentally pop open and stab you. Oh, that's happened to me so many times. Once your elastic's all in the casing, you just want to sew it together. There's a couple of ways you can sew it together. I like to do the little crossover, but you could just sew it together by butting the two bits of elastic together as well and doing a wide zigzag over it. Once this is done and your elastic's all in, next stage is the best stage of sewing a garment, trying it on. Okay, that's them on. I have not closed that little waistband, by the way. I've left that open in case I need to adjust the elastic, but this elastic is perfect for me. It's not too tight across my tummy, but not too slack, so they feel supported still. Length is perfect, fits great, and the tie-dye just looks amazing. Super happy with them. I'm going to get them off though so we can close up that waistband and do a couple of finishing touches. I have got all that closed up now, and what I'm doing is I'm just pulling that fabric round so it's all nice and even, and that the elastic, making sure the elastic isn't folded over in any bits. And then what we're going to do is top stitch the elastic into the waistband. They do recommend this in the pattern, and I do recommend you do it as well. It just gives such a better finish to your garment. Stops the elastic from rolling up when you're wearing them, and yeah, it just makes it much nicer to wear. Okay, once your elastic is all fine and in there, what we're going to do is top stitch all around the elastic, just to keep that in place lovely. What I'm going to do for this is I'm going to change my stitch, and what I'm going to do is increase the stitch length to 3, so it's a nice big long zigzag. So my stitch width is still at 2, but now the length is at 3, so it's much longer. And we're going to do the same kind of technique as we did when we sewed the elastic. So we're using a hand at the back and hand at the front, and we're just going to sew that. Not stretching the fabric, but stretching that elastic. I'm going to do 2 lines of this, then I'll come back and show you how it looks. That's all of my jogger bottoms finished. Really happy with the finish and the fit. These are just going to be so comfortable for curling up, watching films with, or just doing a few hours sewing in. Yes. I am going to sew a matching sweatshirt as well, so I'm going to be living my best tie-dye ice dye dreams. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope if you're sewing up your own pair of joggers, I hope you found this informative. Have a great day, and like and subscribe for more.